This is Dennis McMahon, and welcome to Positively Vermont. And our special guest today is Anson Tebbetts, the Secretary of the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets. Welcome, Mr. Secretary.
Well, thank you, Dennis. It's great to be with you and all your guests. Thank you very much.
Well, this is probably going to be the last show of the year, and I see that it's been very exciting. And we want to explore everything that's been going on and will be going on. But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm the Secretary of Ag, and I've been in this position appointed by Governor Scott. And I've been in this position about a decade now. I grew up on a dairy farm in the town of Cabot. You've probably heard of it because they make wonderful Cabot cheese. And we had a dairy farm. We also had maple production. We had a sugar bush. And at one point, we had a flock of sheep. So I still have the farm in Cabot. And so that's a little bit of my background. And then over time, I was also in broadcasting. I was in radio and television. And I still have a radio show in Waterbury on Radio Vermont. And we talk about birds every weekend. So it's been a little bit of everything over the last 3 decades with me.
That's great. Well, give us our viewers an idea of agriculture in Vermont, the role of the agency and the role it plays in the economy and the entire picture and what the agency does in aid of that.
Well, Vermont agriculture is very diverse. We have dairy, we have apples, we have maple production, fruits and vegetables. We have specialty crops. So it's very very diverse. We also dip our toe into weights and measures. That is a part of our mission. We have an environmental mission. A lot of the work that we do is consumer oriented. So we're looking out for the consumer. We have a regulatory space at the agency, and that's a lot of the work we do. For example, in dairy, we have inspectors that go to the farm and check out and make sure the sanitation practices are being followed. We might end up in the cheese plant every week looking to make sure that sanitation is there. We have an economic development part of what we do at the agency. So we work with various farm groups and industry groups, whether it be maple or dairy or fruits and vegetables or specialty crops. Water quality is another mission we have. So I kind of think of it as, just about everything that someone may run into during their day, we may have had a handle in it because, we all eat. So we're making sure that food is safe. We may be helping farmers support that practice. So just about everything that comes in contact with you on a daily basis, the Agency of Agriculture may have a role with it.
Right. I want to focus on what has been an obvious outreach, Vermont outreach to the nation, to the world. I noticed there was a recent event in Canada. And would you just first tell us some of the outreach activities you've been engaged with during the past year, trade shows, conventions, and exhibits and things of that nature?
Yeah, Vermont, and we have, we have a bounty of food and produce, and we have a small population in Vermont of about 660,000. So we have to turn to other markets that are outside our borders to sell that and get it into places. It could be New York City, it could be Washington, it could be California, it could be a world market. So it could be in Canada. So over the last, I would say over the last year, 6 months, we've been visiting Canada. I was with the governor recently in Newfoundland. There was a conference with the New England governors and the Eastern premiers. So it's relationship building. It's talking about trade. It's talking about our role. One example that we have a role with Canada now. We have a creamery in Vermont that produces goat cheese called Vermont Creamery. Well, there's not enough goat's milk in Vermont. We're working on that. But we rely on some farmers in Quebec and Ontario to sell their milk to Vermont Creamery, and it comes across the border and it's made into cheese. Dairy is important between the two. Maple is really important, with Vermont being the leader in the country in maple production. But Quebec is the world leader. A lot of equipment comes out of Quebec that helps support the Vermont industry. So we're all keeping our eye on trade and tariffs and what impact it has. And of course, over time, we would love to be able to sell more of our Vermont products in Canada. We're very close to a big population in Montreal or Quebec City, or even over into Toronto. So it's very important that we remain and have those positive relationships between Canada and the United States.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about this trip to Newfoundland, and who did you meet, and what type of activity went on there. It's a very interesting place. We may have some contacts there. So tell us what went on in Newfoundland.
Yeah, we were in Newfoundland. I think that was about 3 days, and Governor Scott co-chairs this group, which is all the New England governors and the Eastern premiers. And we were all there talking about various issues, business to business. We were in St. John's, and one of our visits while we were there focused on some of the high-tech industry that's happening in that region, companies that are developing new products, new techniques, everything from 3D imaging and so forth. So we talked to them about that. We talked about trade and tariffs, and I think it's an important thing that we continue to just have those relationships, talk with each other face to face. So all the premiers there, from Newfoundland and PEI, they had representatives from Quebec were there. And of course, Governor Scott, who co-chairs, and he was the United States part of it. But it's just really important that we continue to keep those communication lines open, because Canada and United States are really important to each other, and we want to keep those healthy relationships going.
Right. Well, along those lines, what kind of year has it been for Vermont agriculture? And going forward into 2026, what issues do you project, or perhaps in the tariff area, what difficulties are you looking forward to making sure that it does not adversely affect us?
Yeah, looking back on the year, I would focus. One of the biggest challenges that our producers faced was the weather. We had an extremely dry summer. We had a drought, and we have snow on the ground in many regions now, and we had some rain in the fall, but we still have very, very dry conditions, which really impacted our farmers, whether it was growing vegetables, or whether it was trying to get enough feed to feed our animals. Our climate is so severe in the wintertime. We do rely on a good summer season to grow food for our livestock. So tremendous losses because of the drought, and this comes on the heels of two floods. We had a flood in 24, and we also had a flood in 23 in Vermont. So the weather has really impacted our farm community, and that spans everything from growing grapes to apples to growing feed for livestock and fruits and vegetables. So that farmers are still are going to deal with that, and that's going to be with them for a time. So we're hoping that we have some stability. Some of the markets for dairy are not going in the right direction right now. We have an oversupply of dairy around the country. And the way the system works, the pricing system to our dairy farmers is the national federal system. And there's a lot of milk that's on the market now. And when there's too much milk on the market, generally it comes down to a decrease in the price paid to our Vermont farmers. So that's happening. It may be December, but our sugar makers are already, many of them are already in the woods, making sure and getting prepared for sugaring season, which can, start for some of our sugar makers, could start in January. So they're working to make sure that they're ready to get that first SAP run. So all those things are in play as we go forward. And one thing that's it's been really challenging for our farmers is sort of the instability in a lot of the national, international markets with trade and tariffs. And I think our farmers in 2026 are looking for some calm waters, some stability, some predictability going forward. And right now that hasn't come, but we're hoping that things will settle down in 26, and that will be a benefit to all of our producers and farmers.
Thank you. In terms of outreach, I understand there was this event, the Big E, and there was Vermont Day. Tell us about that event.
Yeah, the Big E is a New England fair, and it's in West Springfield, Massachusetts. And the Agency of Agriculture manages a building down there, something called the Avenue of States. So every New England state has a building. It's a beautiful building, and it's been, I think in 2029 will be our 100th anniversary of being in West Springfield. And we bring Vermont businesses down, and it's a slice of Vermont. It's we sell everything from cheese to ice cream to maple to handcrafted products. So it's 17 days, and so we have a few dozen businesses that go down and just sell Vermont to a big population. Great food, great atmosphere, and it's a chance for some of our Vermont businesses to have a big audience in a very short period of time. It's exhausting for those businesses because they are, they're selling, they're moving product. We have Jamaican food there. We have, ice cream. We have honey. All this. It's just, and we make sure it's authentic Vermont that's being sold there from real Vermont hardworking businesses. And so it's in middle of September is when the Big E. So it's the tail end of the fair season around the country, and so we enjoyed it. And our role at the agency is to support those businesses, help them, get those contracts in place and support them while they're selling all over Vermont down there for about 17 days in September.
That's great. And any other types of national or international events that you went to during the past year?
Yeah, we're always looking, policies that are coming out of Washington. I belong to a group of national ag secretaries and commissioners, and they have an office in Washington, and they help us with federal policy because obviously we cannot be there. So from time to time, we have discussions about trade. One thing that we did in June, and we'll be back there again in June again, in late June, is we have a Vermont pavilion at the Summer Fancy Food Show, which is in New York City. And that's an opportunity for some of our Vermont businesses to enter new markets in a bigger scale. So we manage a Vermont pavilion, and it could be a cheesemaker, it could be someone that's making and selling croutons, et cetera. So there's specialty businesses that we take to New York City, and we work with the Vermont Retail Association on that partnership. So that's another thing that the agency does, all focused on economic development and getting folks maybe more access to some bigger markets outside our borders.
Great. There have been a couple of issues or projects that we'd like to focus on. What about this virus that went on in Orleans? Uh,
Yeah, we have a couple of we've been following, and it's been in America for a few years now. Is the avian influenza,
mhm.
and that is in the poultry industry. Vermont has been spared any sort of widespread commercial flocks being infected by this disease. Other parts of the country, it's been really, really challenging with thousands of birds becoming sick, and in some cases, USDA in other states, having to depopulate, thousands of birds. We've had a few backyard flocks of birds that have come down sick with it. We recently had one in Orleans County that was um, a flock of about 300 chickens, and that was our biggest one. We've had some other small backyard flocks. It's transmitted by a wildlife and the wild birds, and it's sort of coincides with the migration patterns. So this one kind of lined up perfectly. The fall migration. There probably was a wild bird or duck or waterfowl that got into got into the chickens, and they got this virus. We've also been following very closely on the bovine side, which is another strain of the virus. And luckily, Vermont has not had that. And in fact, the region has not had any positive things with HPAI, we call it, on the bovine side, the cow side, in our dairies. But we've done a lot of testing, and we've been testing for about a year now, just making sure it's not amongst us. It hasn't been. We've had a clean bill of health in Vermont, and our dairy farmers have taken it very seriously. Also, our processors have taken it very seriously. But other parts of the country, it has ended up in the dairy sector, but not close enough to Vermont. And we're very thankful it hasn't gotten into any of our dairy herds in Vermont.
In addition to some of the other areas, I understand the agency has done a drought study during the past year, and also has been working on the dry wells issue. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. We talked about the drought and how really severe it was this summer and into the fall for Vermont. So we wanted to know the scale and the scope of that. So we opened up a survey to our Vermont farmers and producers so they could report their losses because of this. It could be, lack of hay, or the crops could be down. It could be their corn. It could be apples, etc. So we've got that survey out, and it should be concluded in January, and we'll have some final results. But the preliminary results of, we've probably had more than 180 farmers respond to that, and the economic loss is millions of dollars. At one point, I think we were, and it will change over time, but we're over $14 million in just direct losses to our farmers because of the dry summer.
I want to focus on some of your relationships with industry, and one in particular is the Pizzagalli Farm Fund. Tell us what's going on with that.
Yes, well, the Pizzagalli family are big fans of Vermont agriculture, and they've been trying to support, and they have over the last decade supported so many projects. So they have one sector they help with is painting Vermont barns. So if there's a barn, a working farm that needs sprucing up, needs a new fresh coat of paint, they have given grants to those farmers. So we manage that part of the agency. We do have a waiting list because there's such a need for painting barns. So they've supported us with that. They've also donated to a drought relief fund this year because of the dry weather. So they made a cash donation to an organization that's helping our farmers with that. And they're also focused on quality and dairy quality. So a number of our farmers in Vermont are really focused on high quality and producing high quality milk. So they have given cash awards each year to 3 farmers because of that work. And it's just it's a nice recognition of how important agriculture is to Vermont, and the Pizzagalli Family Fund has been just a great partner with us in supporting Vermont agriculture in some of the areas that are needed. So they're sending, cash donations to these farmers, so they makes it more affordable for them to farm and produce food for all of us.
Right. Well, going into 2026, a new or a continued legislative session and Congress, what initiatives is your department working with regard to that, or what types of legislation or other political activity from these bodies are you working on?
Yeah, so the Vermont legislature begins in January, and it will go into May, and we're focused on affordability. I think it's really important that we continue to focus on making Vermont a more affordable place to live, work, and recreate. So we'll be, working with the legislature to make sure that our farmers are engaged in that conversation. We're going to have an education and property tax discussion this year. And that's important to our farm community because our farmers have a lot of land. A lot of it is highly taxed. So we'll be having discussions about, education and property tax. We're always looking for ways to enhance workforce development. Our farmers continue to be challenged with finding enough employees to help. That could be on the farm, or that could be in a cheese plant, or in the sugar bush as well. So we're working on ways to make sure we have a trained workforce for our farmers. And I think it's just important that we continue to work on economic development with our farmers. Our farmers produce incredible products, but we need to make sure that we get those products to bigger markets. So trade is really important. We also have something called our Working Lands Program. In that Working Lands Program, we have about $1 million in that program. It's important that we continue to support that program. And that program offers infrastructure grants to our farmers. So it could be a vegetable producer that has a farm stand and they need to expand, but they need some sort of equipment to do that. It could be maybe a new freezer. It could be maybe a new place to cool the produce. It could be infrastructure that helps wash and prepare the produce. So we have a competitive grant program to Working Land. So we'll continue to monitor that and make sure that program continues, and the legislature supports it over time, along with the governor.
Mhm. One of the things we like to do here on Positively Vermont is to talk about community outreach. What do you need from the community, and how can community groups, businesses, and other organizations work with your agency?
I think it's really important that the community, agriculture changes daily in Vermont, but I think it's really positive when farmers talk with their neighbors. So if a neighbor or a group wants to know more about what they're doing and what's going on in their business or on their farm, start a relationship with them, talk with them. Many of our farmers are opening up their operations to the public to see. If someone would like to get into agriculture, please reach out to the Agency of Agriculture. You may want to grow grapes, but we can get you in contact and support you through that journey, and maybe get you in contact with the folks for the Vermont Grape Council. So I think it's really important that we established face-to-face relationships. A lot of people may remember agriculture growing up, and this is the way it was, but it changes over time. And our farmers are incredible innovators and adapters. Some of the practices are, centuries old, and they continue to do those, but others have changed over time. So I think it's face-to-face, get to know your neighbor is really positive on both sides, so they understand the issues.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you for your efforts and those of your agency. I know you've been working very hard in adverse conditions, and just speaking personally, I think it's wonderful that to be in Vermont and to see people working so hard for our farmers and our actually food and markets. So I
Yeah.
want to thank you for that. And looking forward, do you see any special events happening 2026 that you will be participating in or anticipating?
Yeah, I'll be meeting with sugar makers in in December. They have before they really get busy, they have an annual conference. So I'll be attending that in December in Randolph. I'll also be the organic community has a conference in February in Burlington, and that's well attended. And of course, when we get to the point where we're actually out there producing pure Vermont maple, we'll be visiting sugar houses. And I would encourage all to look for the schedule in March, open house weekend at sugar houses. That is an annual event, one weekend where there's a map where people, if they have not seen a sugaring operation and they're kind of been inside all winter and want to go out and enjoy a little bit of the outside and see how a pure Vermont maple is made. So I encourage people to go visit the Vermont Sugar Bankers Association website. They organize it. So in March, we'll be out there. And before you know it, in April and in May, we'll begin another growing season for a lot of our folks. But every month is busy. Every month is important. And we're so happy that you're there to help us spread the good news about what's happening in Vermont agriculture.
That's great. And we look forward to having you back in the spring or any time during the year that we can focus on your work and what the great job you're doing for the people of Vermont. Thank you very much. My guest today has been Anson Tebbetts, the Secretary of the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets. This is Dennis McMahon. Thank you for watching Positively Vermont.